Mate, what is with all these NRL fantasy podcasts? They all sound the fucking same. Welcome to the echo chamber.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the NRL Fantasy Echo Chamber. I'm Jay-Z. Here with me tonight is Big Bad Brycey. Mate, you had a big week. Talk to us.
Yeah, how are we? Yeah, not bad. I ended up on like 862, round rank of 754, and climbed back up the ranks that I'd lost the last few weeks. So, Payne Haas coming in big with the ton. I think I said at some point in the podcast when one of our good friends, Phil, was talking about how Payne was going to lose money, that he'd probably come out and ton up this week, and it's exactly what he did. So, it was good to see a good score on the board.
A truly Herculean effort from the big man. He looked like he was going to come off after about 20 minutes and then said, no, I don't care about modern fitness and injuries. I am going to score 100 points. Also joining me tonight, we have Scoop. How are we, mate?
Yeah, tracking along. Managed to move up a couple last week, but in serious danger this week. I have two backline players playing. I'm sure we'll get back into that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the great wing fullback crisis of 2025, where we've seen Fletcher Sharp go down, Jaden Campbell with a head injury on the same week that James Tedesco has a bye. So dramas all round, basically. And for myself, I had a pretty good week. I'm into 7th overall after an 849. Managed to dodge guys like Campbell and Siwa Wong, who got injured early, and also guys like Katoa and Kaipis Paul having down weeks.
Hang on, what rank did you say you were? 7? I haven't heard that all week.
7th. I've only said it about 14 times. Do you know that I came 4th overall last year?
Oh, did you? Classic.
Yeah, it's just where I belong, I think, at this point. But anyway, enough self-gloating. Let's get into it. To start us off, we have a pretty interesting game. Penrith Panthers versus the Canterbury Bulldogs. Nathan Cleary has been named. Scott Sorensen suspended for 2 matches, but otherwise not too much has changed. Paul Alamotti drops back to the reserves, and we see the backline of Jenkins and To'o back into the side. For the Bulldogs, Lachlan Galvin, he drops back to the bench. We see Marnie, Sexton and Burton in the spine, and I think the player that everyone's got their eyes on this week is Jacob Kiraz. Scoop, talk to me about him. Are you buying him this week? Why? Why not?
I think I have to. Like, he was always one of the best looking targets around this time, and yeah, with so many out, I think I just need to minimize the amount of trades that I'm going to spend in that position while fixing up this dilemma, and Sharp to Kiraz is about the straight swap we can get.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that Sharp injury is a bit of a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I kind of lean towards it being basically a must-have if you have Sharp. I think everyone's going to buy Kiraz regardless if he is named next week and not playing for the Blues. But he's just, I think with Sharp out, that's a number that we didn't expect to have anyway. So that kind of lowers the risk of Kiraz playing Origin. Like he still may play Origin, but then that's a number that you already didn't have accounted for. So it's not the end of the world, even if he does play Origin, is basically what I'm getting at. Another high-priced Bulldog is Jacob Preston. Is anyone keen on jumping on him straight away?
I brought Preston a few weeks back when he first came back into the team. I'm happy that I've got probably one of the second best scoring edge, and I think he's definitely going to be someone everyone sort of jumps in next 3 weeks, sort of thing. Come out of Oregon.
A tough one. It's a tough one for me because I did buy Pierce Paul a few weeks ago, and he's been really, really good until, well, stats-wise, performance-wise, you might disagree with me, Jay-Z. But yeah, until that last week, he was tracking really, really well. I also have Aitken and Couchman and Kolomatangi have dual, so I don't think I need to touch that anymore. Although I would love to bring in Eli Katoa as just somebody to sit on my bench if the Storm rev up and put some big scores on towards the finals.
Yeah, both pretty good options. So I made the decision to grab Preston in round 15 instead of Jaden Campbell, and the fantasy gods have blessed me, despite me despite that not looking like a great trade at the time, because Campbell came out and killed it that round, and Preston had sort of a quiet one where he stumbled to 50, but hoping that is not a sign of things to come, and Preston gets back to where he was before the bye. I think the other big talking point from this game is Nathan Cleary. I don't know if either of you still have him,
I do.
but you certainly wouldn't be considering captaining him this week, would you?
No, definitely not. Not with that leg injury or groin or whatever it is that he's got. That hampered him in State of Origin. Heard people saying that Edwards is probably going to goal kick. So it'll be interesting to see how Cleary actually goes in this game.
Pretty wild when Nathan Cleary sort of slides down to the fourth best captaincy option in your team behind the two big front row forward props, and then also Kolomatangi.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Aaron Clark as well. Like, I'd even put Aaron Clark in front of Cleary this week.
Yeah, I think Cleary really slides down this week, and it's probably worth noting. So, because Payne Haas had a groin injury coming into Origin, and so I understand why people were a little hesitant on playing him last week, or why you may have missed looping him into your side. But it's worth noting that it impacts halves far more than it impacts middle forwards because of just the kicking that they do. Like Bryce just pointed out, with groin injuries, they're not expected to goal kick. We saw that with Jamal Fogarty right before round 15, and we saw it with Cleary in State of Origin. So I'm not sure how he's tracking, and if he doesn't goal kick, that's quite a few points taken off his base.
Yeah.
What do you mean that forwards don't goal kick? I thought I saw Bo Fermor launching them.
He's a centre though, right? He's a centre. So
mate, he looked like the kid in under eights who's never kicked a goal in his life. He was just
what I
kicking
like
it as hard as he could.
What I like is that they came out and said the commentators were saying something like, "Oh, it's not a classical kicking style." And I thought, hang on a minute, that's exactly what that is. That's what we used to kick like back in the 90s. That is the classic goal kicking style.
Yeah, he was a mound of dirt short of being an 80s goal kicker. I think that's about all the talking points from that game. So
I will just say the Bulldogs being favourites against the Panthers come like round 17 in an NRL season is just crazy to me. Like,
yeah, it's. I think it's a reflection of the two sides and how they've gone this season. I was really surprised that Penrith beat the Warriors last week, but I actually think the Bulldogs will comfortably beat Penrith this week.
Yeah, it should be a good game anyway. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, on to a very interesting game, and one that's actually quite fantasy relevant given the team list that the Tigers have named. We have Manly playing Wests at Four Pines Park. Tom Trebojevic, the big news, he's been moved to centre, and Ruben Garrick to the wing. Lehigh Hopewadi in the wing fullback spot. Jazz has been named at hooker, while Corey Waddell is named on the edge to replace Hamole Olakau'atu. On the Tigers side of things, Dream Buller's out for about a month with a hamstring injury, so we see Heath Mason at fullback, and Latu Fainu takes the halfback jersey. I think it's a pretty good indication for him that he's named in the 7 and not the 6, that this might be a long-term plan for them. And the last player of note, Jack Bird, has been named to start on an edge over Alex Seyfarth. Where do we want to start on this one, boys? Anyone's tickled your pickle?
We start with the point that Jay-Z somehow gets everything right. It's like, I don't know about Seyfarth holding his spot. He was like half wrong, but he's never allowed to be fully wrong.
Mate, it has shocked me that he has played as many games starting as he has. He has single-handedly cost them a few games this season, and he's been really, really poor. But, I mean, he's been the only warm body on that edge. Yeah,
so my question is do the Tigers actually run out like this? Like, I understand Jack Bird on an edge is somewhat interesting for people, especially with the lack of backs the next couple games, but he can score.
I don't see why they wouldn't.
20. He can score a 20 on the edge in 80 minutes. That's not out. I don't know. A bit scary for me. I need a centre, which is why I'm looking at Jack Bird. Looking at Tom Trbojevic, even.
He's certainly towards the back end of his career, but I think we have a big enough sample size that says that if Jack Bird is an 80-minute edge, he will average around 40, I'm going to say, given his age and his just the way he's been playing for the Tigers this season. It hasn't been inspiring by any means, but he's someone that's capable of busting a lot of tackles and throwing offloads. And so while I'm not looking at him for this week, if he manages to play anywhere near 80 minutes, I think I'll almost certainly trade him in next week for Nathan Lawson.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you're a Turbo owner, you're pretty devastated right now, right?
It's hard to know because maybe having a bit of a base improves him, right? Like maybe he makes 20 tackles a game, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter that he's not breaking tackles.
He's not going to be in the. If he has to make 20 tackles, they just want to wrap him in bubble wrap now. He'll be injured. Like he's not going to be able to make 20 tackles or what?
It's a valid concern. I mean, when he played that role for the Blues, I think he got injured, broke his arm or something, broke his shoulder or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not in love. If I already had Tom Trbojevic, you're obviously holding him. I don't know if I'd play him. Well, you probably have to.
Let's hope he gets 5 games there. That way next year we get Tom Trbojevic with centre duel, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Scoop, any of these players that you're interested in?
Well, as somebody who's missing a lot, I'm eyeing off whether I'd buy Ruben Garrick or not. I just need players there.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking of selling Ruben Garrick to bring Kiraz in. I'm looking at Ruben Garrick as my ticket to Kiraz. I don't think Ruben on the wing is anywhere near as nice as seeing him in the centres. He loses out so many tackles.
It's a valid point. I guess the only counterpoint to that would be having someone that is probably going to be a lot more pass first in Tom Trbojevic might help him score a few more tries. I imagine they'll probably attack down the right-hand side a bit more with Tommy out there. On the flip side, though, maybe Tommy gets a roaming role and just goes all over the park and they never spread the ball because he's in the middle following up on line breaks that Hopewadi's making.
So,
Speaking of...
but last time Garrick played wing, he averaged 42 in 2023, and that was 0.6 tries. So he scored a lot of tries, and he averaged 43.
Yeah, he's certainly nowhere near as good, at least from a base perspective, as when he plays centre. But speaking of an interesting wing fullback option, Lehigh Hopewadi named at fullback. Does that interest either of you?
I was quite interested until I haven't seen it again, but something popped up saying that the turbo to centre might be temporary. And if I knew that it was going to be Lehigh there all the rest of the year, I probably would have just jumped on. But yeah, it is a bit of an awkward price. And with that, I'm probably going to let him just pass by this week.
So the thing with Lehigh is he just got a -2. So that's going to hang around in his score for the next four games. Break even's 53. I think he's going to lose money. And he's got a buy coming up.
That's a fair point, but I think the crucial thing this week is that we're quite dire on wing fullbacks. If you were someone, and I just spoke to Longy about this, he lost all 3. You have James Tedesco, who's on a bye, Jaden Campbell, who has a HIA, and Fletcher Sharp, who basically had a car crash. That's 3 guys, 3 starting wing fullbacks down. Now, I'm lucky enough to have Garrick and Drinkwater, so I only need to buy 1, and Sharp to Kiraz is a fairly straight trade. But you could do worse, I think, than Hopewadi. He's a number not just this week, but also next week. He plays that round. Round 19 is probably the big deterrent for me, having all those guys out. So I would need to then trade in like a Jaden Campbell or something.
Okay, so why are you not looking at Heath Mason in that case? Because at fullback, that guy averages 40, and he's priced at 24.
Because 40? There's a real chance that Hopewadi keeps a spot for the entire year. He is the future of that club, quite frankly. And while it may seem a bit harsh on Tom Trebojevic, like they need to have Hopper at fullback, I think. So while it may be a temporary thing, if it works out, I find it real hard to see Manly going back to Turbo at fullback.
I mean, it's interesting. The dilemma.
The other interesting option, and someone that I have traded into my side at the moment, is Latu Fainu. So he's been named to start at 7, and so this is sort of ushering in the post Lockie Galvin era. So Benji's come out and he said that he was basically building his match fitness because he came back off a few injuries, and he looked really, really good against the Raiders last week. He's a sharp, straight half, so he takes the line on. Could have a few tackle breaks. I think he had a line break against the ladder leading Raiders or second place Raiders, and he's 300k. So any love for Fainu from either of you?
I'm thinking of going LKT to Fainu just to get off a dragon shitter onto someone I can see probably averaging that 35 to 40.
Yeah, I brought him in a couple of weeks ago, seeing that Galvin was gone and that he was sort of the future. Didn't think it would quite take this long, but I'm happy to see it happen now, and yeah, got the full rewards.
He was injured though, that's why he wasn't playing in that starting earlier. And the coach come out and confirm that they just needed
just match fitness.
Yeah, so that's really good, and I think he's pretty safe. Almost the cash down of this round is Fainu.
I think he's the most appealing sub 300k option, and I'd say sub he's 2k under.
Yeah.
But he certainly seems the only one that I would really consider. Like I said, Jack Bird, maybe wait a week unless you desperately need someone to play. But yeah, I think all guns are blazing on Latu Fainu, and I would not talk anyone out of trading him in. Anything else that either of you want to talk to before we move on to the next game?
Nope, just that the Manly are favourites. So we'll see how that works out for them.
Two pretty understrength sides, quite frankly. The Tigers are running a bit short, especially in the outside backs department. Apparently, Taylor May is playing his first reserve grade game of the year, so maybe one to keep an eye on in the coming weeks if he's cheap enough.
Yeah. I doubt they'll let him be cheap, though, but we'll see.
That's fair.
There's a guessing competition in one of the Discords floating around, figuring out what price. Yeah, I reckon they'll price him at 30, which was based on earlier this year's magic number 405k. So I'll go with that.
That'd be interesting. I think if the timing was a bit better, maybe I'd even consider that. But unless he plays next week, I probably won't even look at him. On to the next game, the Friday 8 o'clock game at McDonald Jones Stadium. We have the mighty Newcastle Knights, fresh off a win against the in-form Dolphins, up against the second place Canberra Raiders. Mate, I'm a Newcastle fan, and that was the biggest shock of the week for me.
Played well,
I would have. Yeah, something
well.
changed.
Yeah.
Something genuinely changed about the way that the Knights played. They were sort of using their backs a bit more, whereas they've been a bit more forward happy for most of the season. But into the teams, before I start tooting the Knights' horn a bit too much, we have Jacob Saifidi returns from injury, but Phoenix Crossland stays at lock. So the interesting benefactor of that is that Jaden Brayley is starting at 9 with no hooker on the bench. And for the Raiders, they're mostly unchanged. Simi Sasangi starts in the back row for Hudson Young, who I believe is being rested. He's managing a groin injury. Jaden Brayley, either of you keen?
So I seen a tweet from our friend Mr. Tui, who said that can't see why Brayley won't be playing 80 minutes going forward. I find it hard to believe, but Brayley at 80 minutes has always been really, really fantasy relevant. So
I'm in a similar position. Like I saw him then. I'm like, oh yeah, he'll probably get decent minutes, but I don't expect 80. And then Tui came out and said that, and I'm like, well, maybe I now just have to have a little bit of a think. I don't need him though, given that Cook exists and Aaron Clark exists. But he'll score well if he does manage to get that role.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do kind of have doubts over whether Cook is a final team keeper. So Brayley is a little interesting. I think if the timing was a little better, that I'd strongly consider it. I mean, for me, Latu Fainu playing round 18 is the only reason that I'm buying him over Brayley this week. And I find it hard to believe as a Newcastle fan that Phoenix Crossland is really going to play lock for the rest of the season. I get that we're really, really down on middle forwards,
How
but
long's Elliot out for? Sorry.
I think he's basically gone for the season. He tore his bicep maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, so we might see him back towards the end of the year. But Brayley's got a free run for a while, assuming Crossland stays at lock.
Mm.
The other,
yeah. So
sorry,
for me, I got the big pothole himself, Reed Marnie. And if this Brayley is going to hold 80, that is around 19 trades for me.
yeah, and there's no reason, like if he plays 80 minutes again and then he gets named a no hooker on the bench in round 19, you can just cash down to him
Yeah.
at that point because you've
Yeah,
got
that's what I'm
basically a pseudo keeper
Yeah.
for 400 odd K. So his break even's really low this week though. It's 1.
He's going to make some
So
money.
if you're not if you didn't really need another number for 18, then absolutely Jaden Brayley is one of the buys of the week.
Red hot.
The other interesting sort of cheapie is Simi Sasangi. While he doesn't quite have the saloon passage that Jaden Brayley does, that he's going to be playing starting minutes for a long time. He'll have it for the next 2 weeks, and he is a now serviceable number for round 18 in the centres. Any interest from either of you guys?
Yes, a lot. Well, I need
Talk
a
us through
center.
it, Bryce.
I need a center. That's all it is, and I need someone that will get me a 40. So he can get me a 40 the next 2 weeks. I'll be happy. Basically.
Yeah, so 46 in 80 minutes against the Warriors in round 12 when Hudson was out. So pretty good signs. There was a lot of that was basically entirely based. 2 tackle breaks, 40 tackles, and 70 run meters. Certainly someone that interests me. But given I already have Lawson and I might not trade him, I might just pass on him and hope Jack Bird there's a bit to him next week.
Yeah, so that's my thing. It's between Jack Bird and Sasangi right now, and it's Lawson going to them. So, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see.
so I don't hate the idea, and if someone gets injured, then Sasangi's the backup edge forward. So my problem is that he's almost like a Zach Docker Clay style, where if Hudson comes back or if Matty Nicholson comes back and they don't get injured the rest of the year, then he's basically
Dead weight.
useless, almost worse than a red dot.
Yeah, because he'll play 10 minutes and he'll be worthless.
He reminds me of like people talking about Talakai a few weeks ago when Hiroti and everybody started to go down. Yeah, he'll be all right in the meantime, but eventually he's going to go back to being a dud, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So if you've got a lot of trades and can, I don't know, do some flicking around, sure, he might be actually pretty useful. But yeah, I would say at least double digits if you're trying to pull a Sasagi.
I only got 7.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. Although if you're trading Lawson to him and you're succumb to the idea that Sasang is just going to sit in your team and rot, then I don't hate it. I think this is kind of the point of the year where we can start. Well, we can afford to have at least one sort of red dot that plays the last buy round and serves some purpose.
Yeah.
It would be a lot nicer if he played 19 though.
Well, I guess the other option for me is to look at Jed Stewart because I can bring a wing fullback in. It doesn't have to be a centre. I've got Garrick that can play up there. So I could play a Jed Stewart who, when he got a 30 with a try, doesn't fill me with confidence.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the thing in his favour is that he's playing in one of the best sides in the comp. So feasibly, he may score a few more tries on the run home. But yeah, he doesn't fill you with joy. He's probably like a mid-10s scorer if he doesn't score a try most weeks. So I don't love the idea of Jed Stewart.
Do we think he builds?
He's kind of like Khan Pereira, but without the speed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, without all the ability.
Wow. Raps.
I think with players like him, Bryce, is if they have a large enough sample size and reserve grade that they're not a good scorer, they're not going to suddenly be a great scorer in first grade. We almost see the opposite, right? We see really good reserve grade outside backs take some time to sort of ease into first grade and start scoring well, like Savelio Tamale, who was a jet in Cup. But it took him a little while to find his feet, and then he sort of became a gun and then unfortunately got injured.
Got himself injured. No good. Do any of you guys still hold Tarpany?
Yes.
We're just going to hold him for the year, or are you going to look at moving him on after Origin?
I have no plans to trade him at this point. He's maybe not the best middle, but I think trades are going to be the most important thing on the run home, and trading out a guy averaging 59 is probably not the best move in my mind.
Cool.
Awesome. So next up, we start with Super Saturday, one of the games of the round. The Brisbane Broncos take on the New Zealand Warriors at Suncorp Stadium. Not much of note. They were kind of expecting Ben Hunt to be back, but his return's been pushed back another week. DWZ is out injured, not really fantasy relevant. I know some people were talking about him as a cash out, but I think we'll give him a miss. Halasima's been benched. If you still have him, it's time to get off. But otherwise, not too many relevant players in this game. Payne Haas has been named again. So I did just see a message from NRL Physio saying his issue is actually to do with referred pain from his back. So I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a game earlier in the season when he came off with back tightness against the Bulldogs. So somewhat of a lingering issue for him.
I mean, he just scored.
So he's just tired from carrying this Broncos side.
Yeah, true.
I think basically, yeah. Not too many interesting players in this game. Maybe Luke Metcalf as a pod half on the run home, or James Fisher-Harris as a budget middle, but his PPM has really dropped off in the last few weeks, so I wouldn't be recommending Fisher-Harris to anyone. But Metcalf, any interest from either of you?
I
actually thought he was. I thought he was out. Like, I thought he got injured last week, so I barely even noticed he was there. Yeah, he's done really, really well. Just picking up huge kick meters, more than we thought at the beginning of the season. But no round 18 is enough to make me not have him. Yeah, I've got who I need for round 18 with Savala going really, really well. If he's still going great after then, maybe I consider it, but he's already over 700k.
Yeah, and I think if you're spending 720k, you spend 740 and you get Katoa.
Yep, that's pretty fair. Maybe we'll talk about it when we get to the Dolphins, but I think there may be Katoa coming back to the fore a bit. I mean, the Dolphins, while they have been outstanding for the past couple of weeks, I just don't think they can keep doing it with all the injuries that they've had. Whereas the Warriors look like they're going to keep rolling for the rest of the year. But yeah, I think he's an after round 18 option in my mind. But to your point, Scoop, he was injured, but it was supposedly just a cork.
Oh, nice.
Took a knock.
Reece Walsh and Josiah Karapani. Interesting wing fullback options for next week.
Right.
Either of you have any interest whatsoever in either of these players?
Reece Walsh, yes. But I need to see him actually get back to what we know he can do, right?
It's 250s in a row from the young lad, and he was quite clearly the best player on the field against Cronulla. So, I mean, he's coming back to form.
Yeah, so he's definitely someone I'm interested in. 500k, tiny little bit awkward, but if he can keep knocking out them high 40s, low 50s, he's definitely someone that I'm watching.
Scoop, how about yourself? Either player interests you at all?
Walsh I have been thinking about, but I just don't know if I'll want to be playing him in my final team as somebody against all of the opposition that everybody else has. So like that, he's kind of in my mind like the 6th or 7th best wing fullback. And if you're playing that guy and losing 5 points a week on him, sure, it's worth it if you can use that 200k to upgrade somebody significantly elsewhere in your team. But at this point of the year, where are you doing that? Where are you getting that extra guaranteed points from? I think it's pretty much just go big.
Yeah, but if you're looking at Garrick, I'd almost recommend Walsh over Garrick at this point, especially with Garrick being on the wing now.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
I think that's a very fair point, actually. The only concern, and maybe it's not a real concern, is that he could, if he has another blinder, Kalen Ponga hasn't played great for Queensland this year, so he's got to be a chance at game 3. I don't think they'll change a winning side, but maybe.
No.
No, Bryce has said no, so we'll move on.
Yeah, not after win and the Knights winning. I think they'll be fine.
Ponga played well last week. He did.
Yeah. I've taken Garrick out of my team now. I'm trying to fiddle with who I want that person to be. But you are right. I think you're probably more correct than me on that one. But yeah, I just don't have the money to go straight up and move Carraz to wing fullback at the moment. That's going to come after Origin, I think.
And that's tough. That's tough, right? So if getting Reece Walsh meant you couldn't get a key, like a gun later, like Kiraz, you can't get back to somebody you're selling this week if you are silly enough to sell JC this week. Then don't do it. It's going to be an easy move.
For me, because I've had Nawa all this time, he's been pretty good and actually really, really nice in this period. But Herbie has just been so good that he's owning him instead of Herbie's been hurting me. So it's going to be that switch to centre in round 19, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about how good Herbie has been. Like you said, Nwanganito Arce has been unbelievable.
He's averaged 48.
Yeah. So many tries on the last few weeks. He had a blinder against the Cowboys, 81 points on the weekend. If he was playing this week, I would strongly consider him.
Buying him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly because I need a wing fullback this week and next week, and he's basically no chance of Origin. But he doesn't play this week, so it's a pointless hypothetical, really.
Yeah. Look, I've held him the whole year, and I don't think I'm going to sell him now. I think he's jumped well and truly above Garrick in my backup wing fullback / centre position. So, he's replaced Garrick in my team and doing that now for me.
Yep, fair enough. Karapani, somewhat interesting, but he doesn't have wing fullback, so that's a big deterrent for me. But I think that's about it for that game. Anyone else that you guys want to talk to before we move on?
Is he? Look, what is he going to average without the tries?
Without tries, he'll average like 22 or 23 or something. But that wing of the Broncos is very good. Problem is, it's just not the right time of year unless you really hate the lower cash downs, in my opinion. Brilliant super coach play, not a great fantasy play.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's fair, but it is worth noting that he does have a trialist 40 on the wing, and a couple of really nice trialist scores in the centres. So he does lose those tackles, but he also had a stack of missed tackles in those games as well. So he does have some fantasy pedigree that he is a tackle breaking player. And with the news that the Cowboys are trying to sign Cobbo and Brisbane won't offer him a contract, there's every chance that he holds that spot for at least the near future.
Because then again, he is like one of the players I'm looking at. So, yeah. Get drunk and figure that one out, I reckon.
Worth considering. All right. Up next, we have the Dragons and the Eels. Another revenge game for Zach Lomax and Clint Gutherson. So this game was a blinder earlier in the year. Quite a few changes for the Dragons. So we see Corey Allen and Christian Tuipulotu come back onto the wings. Both Sloan and Lawson were dropped after having absolute nightmares against the Sharks a couple of weeks back. And Dylan Brown comes back into the Parramatta side after serving a 1-game suspension. Toby Couchman's still on the edge. Damien Cook at 9. The bench looks really good for Cook this week. So Luciano Leilua has reverted to the bench, and they've got Viliame Fafita and Hamish Stewart. So interestingly, Pacific Tonga has been dropped, but not a lot of big minutes off that bench. We saw Hamish Stewart only play 16 minutes in the last week, so hopefully that is good signs for Damien Cook spending some time in the middle.
Isn't Fafita an outside back?
No, he's a big forward, I think.
Thought he was a centre.
Yeah, he's a prop. No, he's a big prop. I think I vaguely remember him being a cash cow option maybe a year or two ago, but he never really kicked on in first grade.
All right.
Whereas for Parramatta, so Kidione Katonga, I think if you held him, I think he had a pretty decent score on the weekend. Scoop, you were kicking yourself a bit before the pod.
It's kind of a bit wild. So I've had that list that you mentioned plus the Wanganita-Waze, so 4 outside backs missing and not really much cover. And yeah, Tamale got injured, so he got sold. But 4 weeks ago, all of them, except those 2 Roosters guys, were supposed to be playing this week. And so Katonga was just the odd one out with the poor buy schedule. And yeah, I wish I could have that one over again.
Yeah, I sold him as well, like 2 weeks ago, and regret is all over my face right now. He's turned into like a top 4 centre.
Yeah, it's a bit brutal. Unfortunately, I don't think he's someone that you'd look to trade back in, or it's just kind of got to move on. Other team news for Parramatta is Riley Smith and I believe Will Penasini both suspended for a couple of games. So that sees Jordan Samrani starting the centres, and Joey Lussick actually started last week and Riley Smith came off the bench, and I believe he scored 2 tries. So that might be Joey Lussick's spot for the near future. Riley Smith holders like myself, I would definitely be trading this week. Scoop, you have him still, don't you?
Yeah, he's going to one of those wing fullbacks this week. He's going to probably turn into that mid-range kind of guy, whether that's a Walsh, Hopewade, or somebody like that.
Yeah, I'm trading him down to Latu Fainu, which gives me about 500k in the bank, which I'm not thrilled about, but I mean, I can't really use that money elsewhere, so you'll have to do
next week or the week after.
Yeah, but well, round 19 upgrade season will be biblical.
Yeah.
Aside from that, not too many relevant players in this game. Footy Dean has been playing out of his skin the last few weeks, and Isaiah Yongi, I think he's really coming to his own as a first grader. Not really reflecting in his fantasy scores though. So,
and anyone that held him made money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any other talking points you guys want to go through before we move on? Emre Gula back into the side for the Dragons. I don't think we're really desperate for a middle, but he was scoring quite well before he got injured.
What do you think Catchman's role is going to be this week? Because with Luciano back on the bench, I could really see Couch playing like most of a half on the edge and then switching to the middle. I reckon that's probably what's going to happen. Do you think that's going to be positive for his scores, or is that just going to cap his minutes ceiling?
It's a tough one, right? Because I think you're right. I think he'll start on the edge for 20, 30 minutes and then move to the middle, but then it kind of depends on how many minutes he's playing. Because if he goes down and he's a 50, 60-minute guy, then that probably really negatively impacts his scores. But if he gets anywhere near like 70 minutes, then I think it just makes him really, really good, and we start seeing some of the numbers that we saw a bit earlier before he moved to the edge from Toby. So one to wait and watch.
I think they just swap set for set. Honestly, they just come on and they both play middle, they both play edge. If you're fucked, I'll go stand on the edge for 15 minutes, you go to the middle. Like, I've seen them do that all the time. You'll see someone's defender set at 6 on the edge if they're a bit tired. I mean, that's the whole idea, having these really versatile guys. So, yeah, you could definitely see that happening.
Yep, absolutely fair. Yeah, I think it's one that we probably need to just wait and see how it plays out.
Especially,
I think,
like, there's no one else with big minutes, right? It's going to be them 2 guys. Like, Lucy's going to come on, he's going to play 45, 50 minutes. There's no one else there that's going to play that many minutes. Amy Stewart will.
Jack de Bellin's been playing 50 to 60 minutes. I don't know. The Dragons' forward rotation's a bit of a crap shot at the moment. So I just hope it means more minutes for Damien Cook, quite frankly, because I would ideally like to hold him for the run home. I was just speaking to Longy about this. If he's a 70-plus minute guy, he is a run home keeper. Anything else, he's probably a sell after round 18.
Cash down.
Yeah.
Yeah. There.
Cool. On to a pretty interesting game. We got Dolphins facing the Rabbitohs, also at the Suncorp Stadium, which is a bit. Oh, that's a Dolphins home ground sometimes, which is fine. So, Junior Tupou's in for Jack Bostock, who's unfortunately done his ACL and will be out for the season. Pete the Greek is back for South Sydney, and we see Jai Arrow start at lock in place of Lockie Hubner, who's been placed on the bench. A lot of troops back for South this week. We see Cody Walker, Jack Wyden back to the centres, Campbell Graham. They basically have their full strength backline for the first time this year. I don't know if that means they're going to be much better, but it's a good sign for Ewan Aitken that he's been moved back to the edge. Anyone for South interest you this week?
Alex Johnson scored 4 tries, but don't go jumping on him. 69 with 4 tries is not what you're looking for in fantasy. If you've anybody who's relevant for Souths is kind of, you probably bought them 3 weeks ago. Like Tallis Duncan exists, but he's now like 120k more than when we were talking about him 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he still has a relatively low break even, and he's scoring 50s every week.
Yeah. If Trell didn't have the round 19 bye and had a guaranteed 2 matches missed in a row, I would think about him. But it's too much, and he's going to be a final team upgrade later.
Yeah, I think we talk about Trell in a couple of weeks, but he then even misses around 26. So
yeah, it's a pretty big downside, and that's, I think, the biggest deterrent for me. Like I spoke earlier about how I'm not too fussed that he misses round 18, but I think round 19 then becomes the real issue, trading in someone like Latrell. So you'd kind of expect, like when I spoke about Kiraz earlier, I'd expect Kiraz to back up in round 19. But obviously Latrell doesn't even have the option. So he is going to be one of the best wing fullbacks in fantasy on the run home if he maintains this ridiculous 600 kick meters a game that he has been putting up the last few weeks. And I think he will, or at least he'll maintain a really high percentage of the kicking share. And he has been the best player on the field basically every game he's played in for the past 3-4 weeks for South Sydney.
yeah, he's a good player when he's on.
He's around 27 buy for Scott Drinkwater.
If you got a trade left.
Yeah, if you've got a trade left. And then for the Dolphins, I mean, Herbie, there's not much more you can say about him. He's just him. He can't seem to score lower than 60 points at the moment. 70 tryless. I think it's the first game he hasn't scored a try in quite a while, but he just decided time to throw 5 offloads, so it didn't really matter.
What round did you buy him? Because this is 2 seasons in a row now where he's just absolutely motored you.
It was just before the buys, I think, so I don't know if it was round 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I had him in 11. I had him in 10. So I bought him in round 10.
Yeah.
So,
Lots more jumped on this year, but far out. Not having him has been a thorn in my side. Been one of the big reasons why I can't move ranks at the moment. Having like a 20-30 point deficit just from not having him.
Yeah, not owning Furby's not fun. I want to give you you brought Kurt as well, didn't you, mate?
yes. So Kurt Donahue has been he's averaging 59 for me the past 2 weeks.
Hell, dude. Like, what a buy.
I wasn't going to buy him. He wasn't part of my plans, and then Fletcher Sharp missed round 15, and I needed a half, and I didn't want to spend up on like a Katoa, and I thought, hey, if Max Plath worked, if guys like Tom Gilbert can average 40 plus, then why can't someone like Kurt Donahue? And mate, he hasn't let me down so far. He's my starting half this week. So, yeah, quite a fortunate one. I think he scored a try in the first week, and then he had a try assist because he was playing in the centres against Newcastle. So lucky, but I mean, him, Tallis Duncan, and Savala all made like 50k for me last week. So one thing that's going well for me is that I'm keeping the ball rolling in terms of cash gen, and I think that's a pretty important thing. Is not just buying buy players for the sake of them playing the buy, but to buy players that might actually score well for you on the buy rounds and might make some money in the process of doing.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Yeah, not too much relevance.
If you have Jamie Humphreys, you're waiting for next week where he kicks 600 meters instead of Latrell.
Yeah,
and goal kicks.
Yep.
And Lewis Dodd has been banished completely out of the 22 after being named at 5'8" last week and being dropped for Jack Wyden, who Wayne Bennett does not like at 5'8". So it says a bit about him. I don't think he'll be at the Rabbitohs much longer.
No. Speaking of that, saw some news just pop up. Sloane's been given permission to negotiate with other clubs, so yeah, that's why he's not even in their plans. Fullback preferences, just not happy with his defensive deficiencies.
Just fair.
So yeah,
he's a bit of a Will Kennedy type fullback for me. Just meh.
Yeah, I think Flano really tried to give him every chance to prove that he belonged in the team. But, I mean, after that Sharks game, like he basically single-handedly let Cronulla back into the game. So
Yep.
That spelt the end of him, unfortunately, like a very, very talented player with the ball, but just didn't quite get there physically where he needed to be.
David Fafita to the Rabbitohs, what do you think?
Good signing. I mean, if anyone can get the best out of him, it's Wayne Bennett. Sadly, Josh Schuster, another sort of project player, has walked away from the game for a bit on compassionate grounds for Souths. He didn't quite make the comeback that I think most people hoped, including myself. I love Schuster as a player, but Wayne Bennett has a proven track record of turning guys that maybe look like they were on the outer and turn them into real, genuine, elite first grade players. So I really hope he can do that with someone like Dave Fafita. Dave Fafita is the best back row in the competition at his best, and even at his worst, is still a pretty handy player.
Yeah, no, I just hope he gets back to playing big minutes for a club. He's so electric to watch when he's on. So yeah,
I mean, we even saw it this year, right? When he played St. George, and he basically single-handedly, even though they lost, he scored all their points. Basically, set up 2 tries, beat 11 tackles or something. Anyway, we'll move on to the Sunday game. So another, what proves to be a cracker, but Cronulla are kind of in the wars at the moment. Shout out Rudely. Melbourne play the Sharks. So one other player I was considering for round 18 in my centres was Jack Howarth, who is not in the side, who is ill apparently. It must be bad if they've cut him from the team on Tuesday for a game that's being played on Sunday.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these two teams are mostly unchanged.
I need a big score from Pap this week, mate.
It's a bit of a... These games are traditionally quite bad for fantasy. I think the only one that really came out with a good score last time was Munster, and he had 3 try assists in it. Did either of you buy Jerome Hughes?
No,
I didn't.
Are either of you considering buying Jerome Hughes?
No, because Savala's doing such a good job.
We're not.
If Savala wasn't like doing what he's doing, then probably would definitely have done it, and Savala would have been the guy to go. But he's killing it right now, so I've got really no point to sell.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. And this is why we sort of hammered that point home, right, in round 12, where people were doing luxury trades. Like people were bringing in Isaiah Katoa, so they avoided Savala's score. Savala has basically become a borderline keeper level half scorer over the past 5 weeks. I think he's got like 1 score under 50. And, mate, what I've heard is that Cherry Evans may announce his retirement. That is how good of a job Hugo Savala is doing. Testament to the guy. So I agree. Hughes is not for me. If you already have two halves and Savala's one of them, then I think you can very easily pass. But in saying that, Hughes is still a good option. But I think last week kind of showed us that maybe he's not where he was last year. And I don't know whether that's because Munster's a dominant ball player or if that's just because the Storm aren't as good this year. Interested to hear your thoughts on that, Scoop.
I think Pappenhausen running around doing Pappenhausen things is also taking that actual last pass away from him. So yeah, he's doing some good plays and all that. But he had 1.3 try assists a game last year. This year he has about half of that. And yeah, it's not the be all and end all. That's not the whole contribution. But it just shows that the way that the attack is working is quite a bit different, and it's not as Jerome focused.
I think it's a mixture of Pap being back and Munster being back. They're both just taken a tiny bit away from Jerome because he had to do everything last year. So
yeah,
it's just not all going through Jerome. It's probably 4 or 5 involvements, in the attacking half every game, but that's enough to just bring him down. So yeah, that's
I think that's a really fair point. And I think Melbourne aren't at their final form yet. So maybe if you're tipping them to come home with a wet sail, like I think they probably will. But as they showed against South Sydney last week, it was only Latrell's goal kicking that kept them in that game. The fact that he missed a bunch of goals, they scored more tries than Melbourne. Pappenhausen's kind of in the same bucket for me of sub-elite keepers. Like they are borderline keeper players, but they're maybe not the top tier. And this Cronulla game's actually, I think, a really bad matchup because Cronulla are so strong out wide and they have pretty good forwards as well, that Melbourne might struggle to get things going a bit. The last time these two sides played, only a couple of weeks ago, Cronulla beat Melbourne quite convincingly.
Yeah, I'm just hoping the Sharks continue to suck like they have been. And, Reece Walsh got a 50, so Pappenhausen should definitely be able to keep that run going if the Sharks are as bad as what they have been defensively.
So on the Sharks side of things, we actually do... one thing that's happened, we said it at the start of the buys that maybe he wasn't an elite level keeper because he wasn't getting the minutes. But now he's playing 65 minutes every game. Adam Fanua-Blake, do either of you own him, and would either of you consider buying him?
I own him. He's been pretty solid. 53 last week was just about what you're happy with, and then you hit those spike weeks and makes all the difference. So I'm very confident that he's going to be in my starters or my top bench mid replacement for the whole rest of the year. Would I buy him? I don't know. There's a few middle forwards that are a little bit cheaper than they might usually be at this time, but he's not bad.
I'm not interested.
How about you?
I've got Couchman, Tarpany, May, Haas, Colin Matungi. I think I'm good for middles. Clark even.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I think we've sort of seen Cronulla almost be like, oh shit, he's the only player doing anything, so he's going to get all the minutes and he's going to get all the ball. And I mean, he's performing for them. He might be the only forward that is, but he is performing for them. So one to watch after round 18, I think. If he continues playing 60 minutes a game, we know what he can do. He was a gangbusters for the Warriors last year. Outside of that, Sifa Talakai, wouldn't be looking at him. And there aren't many interesting picks at Melbourne. Like I said, I was kind of interested in Howarth, but if it's only illness, that actually might work out in my favour because he won't get the price rise that the 50 he scored last week has done for him. So one to keep an eye on. If you need a number, he might be an interesting sort of 20th, 21st man.
Ali Katoa for a bit of a cut price, keeper edge. Another one.
Yep. If you don't have a Jacob Preston, I think he is probably the next best option. Not in terms of pure scoring, but the fact that he basically plays out the rest of the season and is like a sort of mid-50s guy, if not slightly lower.
If you have... Okay, out of the pure edges, that we've been running around thinking about buying: Aitken, Pierce Paul, and Preston. If you have one of those and no Couchman, I think you can 100% just go Eli Katoa very easily. If you have more than that, you think about it. But if you're in a situation like me where I've got Colo, Couch, Pierce Paul, and Aitken already, it's just not needed.
That's where I'm at. I got Couch, I got Aiken, Colin Preston. Like, I've got enough edges. Dylan Lucas at a pinch, come up from centre. Like, there's heaps of cover there for me. One of them guys get injured though. Hello, Mr. Come into my team.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a valid point that we have such a glutton of mid and edges for round 18 and onwards.
Yep.
Unfortunately, someone that is, I think, a very valuable pod in Katoa is maybe not at the top of our list. It maybe if Kaloamatangi plays game 3 for the Blues, if you're an edge short, someone that you can consider.
Yep.
I'm not sure how likely that is, but I mean, he should be in the team. I'd absolutely be picking him over Uto Ikamanu. But we'll see how that plays out. Harry Grant, probably the only other interesting option. Probably waiting till after Origin for him, but
100%.
he is showing signs of life. A 68 last week, and I think he finished last year quite strongly as well. So he's a pretty interesting option on the run home.
55 the week before that too. So he's the 2 weeks before that, around 14. So yeah, he's got his break even down. He's going to stop losing money. He's going to start making money. And 630k for Harry Grant. He's definitely a buy.
Absolutely. Any closing remarks on this game before we move on to the final game of the round, gents?
No.
Blake Brayley, number 1 hooker in the game.
Oh, mate.
The try scoring machine.
Don't break my heart.
It's a big couple of weeks for the Brayley brothers.
He's done well, hasn't he?
Yeah, that 90 on the buy round, exactly what you wanted from a pod hooker.
Yeah, and I went with... Anyway, let's not break my heart.
Yes, we won't talk about Reed Marnie. Sorry, Mead Rani.
Yeah, that's the one.
So, final game of the round, and let's just say defense is not on the table. We've got the Gold Coast Titans playing the Cowboys. Cowboys still without Jason Taumalolo, and I believe Carl Lawton has now been suspended as well. That sees Jake Clifford, the big Cliff dog, return to the side and Purdue back to the centers. Bryce, you're a Cowboys fan. That was a change that I think a lot of us were a bit surprised about at the time. Are you glad that he's back in the centers and that Cliff's back, or what's your say?
I'm not. No? I'm not glad about that because it means it failed. So, look, it's probably what we need to stabilize with Clifford in the team. He doesn't really offer us anything other than a tiny bit of organization and direction. It will be really interesting to see how Jake takes not doing that as much with Dearden being 7. I think his kicking game will be better.
Yep.
Look, I think we're in for a tough game. I think we're really low on confidence. We just did not look like we even wanted to play the game last week. No one was interested. The only player that actually put any sort of effort into the game is Cohen Hess.
He's been great.
Yeah, it was just abysmal. Drinkwater did everything that he could do, but it's just not enough when Dearden. It just wasn't enough last week from them players. So we really missed Ruben Cotter. We really missed Lolo, and Lolo's not back yet. So
yeah, absolutely. Robson and Cotter back should help a lot.
yeah.
Titans, they're down on troops. Jaden Campbell failing the HIA, hasn't even been named this week. We did see some silly buggers with AJ Brimson failing a HIA and playing, but no such luck for Campbell owners this week. There isn't too much to talk about in either of these sides, really. Probably the two least fantasy relevant sides. Some people have been blessed with try-scoring edge back rower Chris Randall. Anyone that either of you guys want to talk to?
He's been a little bit like Savala with the sand injury and Donahue and a couple of the others, just like, oh yeah, there might be an avenue there, and it works perfectly. Like Fafita has his third ankle surgery and is out for another 2 rounds. All this sort of shenanigans, and all of a sudden he's now a weapon.
I brought Jolliffe a few weeks back, so I'm super happy with what he's put out. I just need to ride his Bryce roses now. Wait for round 18. The sternum injury, is that what Tino's got?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how many minutes Tino actually plays in this game. Because he definitely looks like he's been affected by that. Big Mo, I think his time has come as a premium prop. So I would not be surprised to see Jolliffe really take a bigger role in this team, because he looked really good last week. When he was on the field, they were going forward. Yeah, so him and RCG, when they were on the field, they done well. It was when they went off that they went backwards. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Tino is one of those guys that I think we really need to keep an eye on, because I spoke about him pre-Origin as someone that I really wanted to have, and he continued producing massive scores until he had that sternum injury. Now, I think he's gone from about 770k to about 679 with an 88 break even this week.
93 break
So,
even. That's
that's if he has another quiet game or two and he gets back to what he was doing pre-Origin, like we're talking 73, 65, then he's going to be a real cut price elite keeper option. So one to keep an eye on. Obviously not for this week, and given he's playing Origin next week, not until at least round 20. But yeah, keep an eye on how cheap he is.
Yeah.
If you have Purdue, you're holding him for at least one more week. Same with Drinkwater. He doesn't fill me with hope, but I think you kind of just have to keep him and hope the Cowboys get better at this point, because he's almost Purdue in that, but at least for round 18, yeah.
If you needed to play him,
I'd still hold him. This is a good matchup for him. The Cowboys are back to not full strength, but somewhat resembling a full strength Cowboys side. So I'd expect the Cowboys to win this game and ideally win it comfortably. So hopefully Drinky and Purdue get back.
Way more faith in that shit cunts than I do, mate.
Yeah, that's true. You're a bit pessimistic when it comes to the Cows, though.
Yeah, true. I'm going to put just a sneaky 50 on AKP to score a hat trick.
Why stop there? Why not give him 4 like Bosto?
This could be I thought it would be a huge battle of who can score their hat trick the fastest between Lomax and AKP last week. Didn't turn out quite that way for Lomax, but yeah, he could just shoot up this week.
I think no Jaden really helps us. Like if Jaden was in this game, I'd not even watch it. I'd cry. But no Jaden helps us. It means we only really got to worry about Brimson. One more thing is fucking Cohen Hess.
Mm-hmm.
Next time I have a feeling about a player, I'm just going to do it, because round 10 I was like, Cohen Hess, he's the one, we got to watch him. And then 440s in a row. He got 49 last week. Guy looks like he's finally back to peak fitness. He's just gone. He's gone now. The price is gone. But yeah.
He does look good, but I mean, there's other guys that were in a similar price bracket that have done better, like a Tallis Duncan or a Kurt Donahoe. So you're not going to be upset with the 40s that he's scoring by any means, but I mean, it's still proven that he's kind of the worst of that bunch. But yeah, absolutely a guy that had a useful DPP and has been scoring and playing well. So it's good to see him back towards his best.
Yeah, I'd actually swap him and Mo in State of Origin, to be honest.
Yeah, fair call. I think that about rounds us up. Do the Origin teams get named this weekend? Is either of you expecting any changes to the sides? I sort of spoke to Klaumatangi in for Uta Ikamanu, but I don't really see any other changes unless injuries force.
Well, there's a bit of interestingness with Young not being named this week. It makes me wonder if he'll be ready and fit for Origin 2. But Origin 3, sorry, after backing up after just a couple of days and not playing that many minutes. So one to watch there. That could have an impact on that outcome, but I think they're just playing it safe and getting ready for the Blues camp.
I think both teams pretty much just go in again, do it again, unless there's an injury. And I expect New South Wales to win 28 or 32-6 or something like that.
Yeah, I've got tickets to the game and good ones at that, so I'm very keen, and I hope the Blues get up, and I hope they get up comfortably. So it'd be interesting to see how Cleary goes this week. If he's not goal kicking, I mean, do you take in a half, even if he's as good as Cleary? If he's not at his best, we saw what the Blues look like when he was underdone in game 2.
Who are you going to replace him with?
Izzy Katoa, mate.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy's a great player, but I'm not sure he's Origin ready. That would be interesting. If that happened, that would make the game so spicy.
I think Matt Burton would just go to the pub if Katoa got named. He's like, 18th man? Nah, I'm just retiring, man. Never call me again for the Blues.
Imagine that.
Hopefully for Burton owners, now that Campbell Graham's back fit, that he's the 18th man and he's not subjected to his 6th club game that he has to miss for no reason.
Get his $5,000 while he watches everybody else run out, get 40 or 50.
Yeah. One last thing before we go, captains this week, gents. Throw May for myself.
May.
Yeah, May. Haas. I mean, off 100, you have to at least think about it for half a second, but May, it's no point.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards that Haas score being on the flukier side. While nothing he did was a true fluke, I think the fact that he managed to get through that game and score 100 points was a bit fluky.
It's one of the. I think it's close to the most impressive set tree of all time. I mean, Turbo's 150 when he absolutely lit it up is insane, but 101 in that many minutes as a prop forward, backing up, semi-injured, everything was flawless.
It was crazy. It was every run he was offloading, every run he was busting a tackle. He made 40 tackles as well. So he's just an absolute freak of nature. He, in my mind, is already the greatest forward of all time. And if this is what he's like now, he's still got a few years of his prime. You could argue he's not even in his prime yet. So scary things for Payne Haas.
Yeah, he's definitely a top 5 prop of all time, already. There's no doubt about that. So,
he's only 25.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go. Yeah, he probably, I think if the Broncos don't start looking like they're going to win some comps soon, he might be getting a little bit of itchy foot. Personally, because I think he needs to go and win some comps. Be a travesty.
Yeah,
finished with no comps at all, mate.
It would be. It really would. But I think he's on record saying that he wants to play for the Broncos and doesn't really see himself playing for anyone else. So I think he'll be a Bronco for life.
Yeah. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting a bit too off topic here. Thank you all if you're still listening for whatever reason. And we'll see you next week.
Hour and 8 minutes. Quick one. See ya.